Hi, my name is Kate and I'm a researcher from Cardiff University working as part of the Active Building Centre research programme. Our work package within the programme is called Living Well in Low Carbon Homes and is led by Professors Karen Henwood and Nick Pidgeon and researched by Doctors Fiona Sharani, Rachel Hale and myself. Today I will be drawing on our research to explore how the ideologies and ambitions for new active homes to influence broader societal value transformation influence the inclusion of community spaces in their design, and then how these spaces have been experienced by the people living in these new neighbourhoods. So first I'll briefly explain our research. So Living Well in Low Carbon Homes holds three strands of research around active home development. And briefly, we can consider active homes as low or zero carbon homes with energy production and storage capability, and with the capacity to digitally communicate with other active homes, the electricity grid, and other energy demanding sectors, such as transport. Our research aims to understand the motivations of active home stakeholders, for example, the designers and developers, understand the perspectives of existing communities, and then understand the perspectives and experiences of people who move into the active homes. We have 5 case sites across South Wales in the UK, 3 of which are completed and occupied, and these are diverse in their material designs, their energy configurations and energy management and tenure, with our case sites including both social housing and owner-occupied tenures. However, they also have commonalities. They all include solar PV, intelligent battery storage, high levels of insulation and electric heating. We're adopting a qualitative, longitudinal research design. This means that we're interviewing residents once before they move and twice within the first year after moving into their new home. Speaking with people over an extended time is really important as it allows us to explore their expectations of the home and then their experiences of living there. We're able to consider experiences across changing societal, political and economic contexts, across different seasons and weather conditions, as teething issues are found and resolved, and then as people become accustomed to their homes and how they operate and live with their different energy systems. So why develop active homes? Concern for climate change and the need for urgent action is growing across UK society. The UK government has set a target of net zero carbon emissions by 2050, which requires decarbonisation across all sectors. Other policy ambitions to green the economy and to build back better now link climate change mitigation with economic development and include scale-up of renewable energy and transformation of the building sector. More broadly, it also holds transformation of how energy is owned, managed and distributed, implicating energy providers, regulation, policy and holding new roles in the energy system for households. Buildings, including homes, are increasingly imagined as being a solution to electricity capacity issues, enabling grid flexibility by installing renewable energy production with energy storage, being digitally smart and interconnected with each other, the grid, and also across vectors like transport. They can potentially alter both the level and temporal distribution of energy demand. Currently, real-life examples of active homes in the UK are limited to small-scale demonstrator projects. As demonstrators, and with part government funding, these developments aim to prove that such homes can be viable and sustainable, economically, environmentally and socially now and in the longer term. So before I present some of our data extracts, I just wanted to quickly run over the literature we've drawn on in exploring the interplay between the ideologies and ambitions embedded within active home developments, the design of the neighbourhoods, and the experiences of residents. So placemaking is important in new urban design, where spaces should be both livable and sustainable. As society and place are deeply intertwined and mutually constituted, sustainable placemaking is interconnected with community and perceptions of a sense of community. Through sustainable place shaping processes, where transformative learning, experience in place and regenerative action are taken forward and experienced by people, both the people and the places they inhabit can affect mutually constitutive changes in each other, generating new, socially innovative agency. Active homes are a technical and social innovation, potentially altering social relations, ways of doing, organising, framing and knowing. Directly implicated in such change are the residents of active homes and the neighbourhoods that they constitute. By choosing to live in an active home, the residents may already hold some shared values. But to be sustainable in the longer term, further commonalities between people and place are important, such as a shared identity and common shared norms, social order, and a civic ethos in the neighbourhood. The inclusion of green infrastructure, so things like parks, gardens, or urban farms, in urban developments can contribute to the encouragement of social interaction, creating community cohesion, developing social capital, and promoting stewardship and longevity. And so including such features in the design of active home neighbourhoods may contribute to place shaping processes and social innovation experienced by those living there, but also potentially affecting wider society through proof of concept and new value formation. So to start exploring some of our findings, I wanted to first consider how the key stakeholders involved in our case sites perceived these projects and what they hoped would be achieved in terms of societal value change. As Expert 4 suggests, they're hoping to drive a societal shift in what homes are valued for, encouraging people to value a home's low carbon or other environmental characteristics, as opposed to more traditionally valued features such as the size of the home or the views from the windows. However, stakeholders also spoke about how this change has to be led by the people in that society, and so by building homes that embody these new values, letting people experience them, and then through the sharing of their positive experiences with others, the broader good or benefits associated with the homes would become to be known and sought after by other people. As Expert 5 suggests, many stakeholders expressed that the homes they were developing would be higher quality and offer a better way of living than homes currently available to people, and so the resident experiences would be positive. Linked to this is Expert 9's quote, which highlights how several stakeholders perceived that the development of active homes was timely and reflective of already shifting values in society around climate change. But not only are the homes reflecting and enabling shifts in society to value environmental benefits, they also reflect a different way of approaching urban developments by the stakeholders. As Expert 23 highlights, as opposed to a build, sell, and then move on to the next development approach, the stakeholders in our case site were involved in a seismic shift, aiming to be involved in establishing new communities in the longer term, recognising the importance of community development in the success of the concept of active homes. So when talking about how communities could develop in these new neighbourhoods, stakeholders often spoke about a sense of place, sense of community, and specific communal spaces all mixed together. Each element, community, space and place, were considered as playing important roles in the development of sustainable communities. As Expert 9 states, communal spaces can help to foster a sense of community. And going a step further, Expert 4 and Expert 20 suggest that developing a sense of place and a sustainable community could be achieved through the inclusion of green spaces in the neighbourhood, where residents could access and connect with nature. And that not only is this approach challenging normative urban designs, but it holds further other benefits to residents, such as to their health and well-being. Fundamentally, our stakeholders expressed an ambition for green community spaces to enable residents to encounter other people in the community as well as nature, so that the neighbourhood more broadly becomes intrinsically valuable to the community, and the community becomes invested in living there and its stewardship for the longer term. On this slide, I've included images of all of our case sites and tried to highlight how the interconnection between green infrastructure and community development is being materially realised in different ways. So in case sites 1 and 2, community gardens with seating areas have been developed. In the image of case site 1 is the crescent, as is referred to by our participants. This holds planting that's been specifically chosen to encourage biodiversity and connections between the residents and nature. In case sites 2, 3 and 5, longer sightlines, an organic aesthetic and the blurring between private and public spaces is being realised through low-level fencing or the planting of fruit-bearing shrubs such as boundary markers, and the use of cul-de-sacs and crescent shapes. It's hoped that these design features can enable community encounters through people being able to see one another and through the sharing of the fruits that may be picked. Development of purposeful community spaces, so places where designated activities take place, such as in case sites 3 and 5, were perceived by some stakeholders as important, as these kinds of spaces provide an opportunity not only for passing encounters, but for community members to negotiate the organisation and management of such areas together. This is imagined as increasing their communication with one another, and also developing the space into a place in ways that reflects the community's ideas and ambitions, making it even more meaningful to them. Just to note, as I mentioned at the start, case sites 4 and 5 are not yet occupied. So over the next few slides, where I explore the resident perceptions and experiences of their communities, it will be in relation to the occupied case sites only. So let's take a look at how the community spaces have been experienced by the people living in the neighbourhoods. Despite stakeholders expressing how important the development of these spaces is for the sustainability of the neighbourhoods, on all of our occupied case sites there have been delays in completing the community spaces. Several participants expressed disappointment about this. As Amy's quote highlights, this was particularly disappointing for those in active homes where design ideologies of things like garden villages, of lower impact community living, or how a community may develop through the sharing of ideas and resources had been overtly expressed to residents prior to moving in, making living there more attractive to some who valued those community values. Similar frustrations were expressed where private or community green spaces had been completed but did not resemble what had been envisaged, or, for example, could not be maintained because no outside taps had been installed to enable watering over summer months. Questions over ownership, use and also management of community spaces was raised by several participants in different ways. This is in relation to green spaces, but also to other areas such as parking bays or curbsides. Where there is confusion, tensions can arise. For example, as Lisa explains, confusion over who owns and thus who could and couldn't access the community area in her neighbourhood led to her young son being reprimanded by another neighbour. This now means that he feels too nervous to access the area again, even though he is allowed to do so. While other participants across our case sites had not necessarily experienced confrontation, they did talk about a reluctance to access the spaces due to concerns that they would do so incorrectly or perhaps be reprimanded by those living closer by. Questions over ownership and rights of access also extended to the wider community, so people living nearby but not within the active home neighbourhood itself. Some participants expressed a sense of annoyance on seeing these other people access the community spaces, feeling that they were less entitled to do so as they did not live in the active home neighbourhood. Connecting with these questions over ownership and the right to access is that the completed community spaces at present have no designated purpose. For example, a children's park or a place to grow vegetables. Some participants suggested it would be helpful to have a clearer purpose for the spaces communicated to all neighbours, making it easier for people to know when and where and who should and shouldn't access the spaces. However, there were many positive experiences also expressed to us. Participants like Neil spoke of how having green spaces had multiple benefits. Access to nature and wildlife and quietness evoked feelings of calmness and peace. Neil also groups together his positive experiences of being outside with that of a friendly community, connecting place and people. While the community green spaces so far have been met with mixed experiences, the design of the overall external elements of the neighbourhoods has been praised by most participants. As Ben explains, sightlines across streets, cul-de-sacs or crescent shapes enables residents to see each other and communicate more freely. It's encouraging social encounters and generating familiarity and a sense of security and safety. In addition, accessibility considerations for residents with mobility issues has enabled some people to gain new privacy and freedom, being able to navigate the place independently. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that people can gain a sense of community is through perceptions of shared values and norms. And while community or communal spaces have played a role in fostering these, for example, as Amy's quote suggests, providing a topic of discussion and a knowledge exchange between residents, there are other elements to living in an active home neighbourhood that have also been important for these processes. First of all, as Julie's quote reflects, prior to moving into their new homes, many participants expected to have similar worldviews and values to their prospective community members. Several participants spoke of concern about the effects of climate change, and like Natalie, spoke with pride about being able to move into an innovative neighbourhood that linked with their pre-existing environmental concerns. Participants also spoke of how this represented a big step for them and society more generally towards a better way of building and living, not just for now, but for future generations of people to come. As Natalie's quote suggests, there was a perception amongst many participants that they were doing something different to the norm, being innovative and positively contributing to society in moving into these homes. And as Dylan suggests, over time, he expected that the homes would become more commonplace. These views connected not only the residents' worldviews with the stakeholder ideologies underpinning the developments, but it also linked them with the identity and the perceived social status of the residents themselves. In addition, participants like Megan also spoke of how, as a community, all learning to live within new and novel homes, sharing experiences and learnings with each other had been reassuring. In addition, as Amy's quote suggests, social media had been used by many residents as a means of facilitating social interaction, sharing experiences and troubleshooting technical issues. And this was really important when community spaces were incomplete or where people couldn't interact in person due to COVID-19. Overall, most participants spoke favourably about their new neighbourhoods and the growing sense of community they felt was emerging. And after 12 months of living in their new homes, most participants expressed that they would like to remain living there for the longer term, or if changing home, would seek out a similar type of home. So just to summarise what we've discussed, the role of community in placemaking, so developing connection and attributing value to spaces, was identified by several stakeholders as an important element in the longer term success of active homes, and the wider societal value change needed to enable a broader rollout of similar homes in the UK. The design of green community spaces in active home neighbourhoods was considered an important feature in enabling placemaking and community. In addition, through the combination of access to green spaces and living within and exchanging knowledge about new and novel active homes, place-shaping processes of transformative learning, experience in place and regenerative action were also enabled. This in turn can lead to socially innovative agency. As such, all of our case sites have included community green spaces within the neighbourhood design. Experiences of the community green spaces by residents was mixed. Positive experiences were discussed where green spaces acted as points of contact with other community members, enabling neighbours to get to know each other and contribute to a sense of community, something most participants stated was important to them. In addition, people spoke of feelings of calm, of health and well-being benefits when being able to access the green spaces and feel immersed in nature. In addition, where community green spaces worked with the other external features of the neighbourhood, for example such as cul-de-sacs and crescent shapes, the neighbourhoods overall were perceived as attractive, secure and safe. However, questions were raised around things like ownership, permitted use and the responsibilities for accessing, developing and maintaining community spaces. Where there was uncertainty around these questions, some participants expressed a reluctance to use the spaces. Other aspects of living in an active home neighbourhood also contributed to placemaking and a growing sense of community. For example, where residents felt that they shared common values and norms around climate change, and a perceived need for all of us in society to build homes differently and to live differently within them. In these different ways, active homes can be considered a social innovation, changing social relations, involving new ways of doing, organising, framing and knowing. In addition, many of our resident participants anticipated remaining in their active homes for the foreseeable future and spoke favourably about the communities that were developing, suggesting that the stakeholders' ambitions for community and placemaking may be realised over time. Finally, the resident experiences discussed in this presentation are drawn from talking with them at different points in time, allowing us to gain insight into both their pre-move expectations and then later experiences of placemaking and community, two processes that themselves take time to be realised. As our final two case sites hold additional different approaches to utilising green community spaces for community development and placemaking, our research in this area remains important. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much. My contact details are on the screen. Thank you.